A marriage built on passion ended in betrayal, but the most shocking part? The betrayal didn't come from a stranger, it came from within the family. What could possibly push a husband to cross the ultimate line of loyalty, not just to his wife, but to the sanctity of family itself? And what could make a mother risk everything, her daughter's trust, her own reputation, for a forbidden desire? In this chilling tale, a love triangle formed where it never should have, leading to jealousy, obsession, and a night that would end in blood. But the truth of what really happened would leave investigators and the entire community speechless. Was this a crime of passion born from reckless lust, or was there something far darker lurking beneath the surface, something no one saw coming? By the time the shocking affair came to light, one family member would be dead, another would be in handcuffs, and the world would ask, how could love turn this deadly? In the serene, middle-class suburb of Maplewood, New Jersey, the Martinez family seemed to have it all. Daniel Martinez, a 38-year-old financial advisor, was known for his charm, professionalism, and unwavering dedication to his wife Rachel and their young daughter. Rachel, 34, was the kind of woman who made everyone feel welcome, warm, thoughtful, and devoted to her family. Together, they presented an image of stability and love that friends and neighbors admired. But lurking beneath that polished exterior was a secret so scandalous it would shatter their world. And at the center of it all was Evelyn Bennett, Rachel's 54-year-old mother, a woman who, until recently, had been celebrated for her resilience after a difficult divorce and for her close relationship with her daughter. The tragedy began to unfold during a quiet spring evening when police were called to the Martinez home after neighbors reported hearing a scream followed by the sound of something heavy collapsing inside. When officers arrived, they found Rachel lying motionless in the living room, a deep wound at the back of her head. Daniel was kneeling beside her, sobbing uncontrollably, his hands stained with her blood. At first glance, it looked like a tragic accident, a fall, perhaps, during an argument. But the evidence told a different story. The crime scene suggested a violent altercation, not a simple slip. And when detectives dug into the Martinez family's life, they uncovered a secret that would shake even the most seasoned investigators. Daniel had been having a months-long affair, not with a coworker, not with a neighbor, but with Rachel's own mother. As whispers of the affair spread through the community, the crime transformed from a domestic tragedy into a scandal of shocking proportions. How could Evelyn betray her daughter in such a way? What drove Daniel to risk everything, not just his marriage, but his freedom, for a forbidden passion? And most importantly, did this affair set the stage for Rachel's death? Investigators quickly pieced together that the affair had been going on for nearly 8 months, with Daniel and Evelyn meeting in secret at hotels and during times when Rachel believed her husband was working late. Friends of the couple described Rachel as deeply trusting, perhaps too trusting. She had no reason to suspect her husband and mother of engaging in such an unthinkable betrayal. But there were signs, small cracks in the perfect facade. Tension between Rachel and her mother had grown in recent months, though neither admitted to any major conflict. Daniel had become more withdrawn, more restless, as though hiding a growing guilt. And Evelyn, according to a close friend, had recently confessed that she was living in a nightmare she couldn't escape. Was Rachel beginning to suspect the truth? And if she had, did that confrontation spark the violent night that ended her life? Investigators were about to uncover a timeline that would reveal just how dangerous forbidden love can become. The story of Daniel, Rachel, and Evelyn was not one of sudden betrayal. It was a slow, creeping erosion of boundaries, fueled by proximity, emotional vulnerability, and unspoken desires that spiraled into something neither could control or stop. Daniel and Rachel had been married for nearly a decade. Their relationship had started like a fairy tale, college sweethearts who married young and built a comfortable life together. Daniel's career as a financial advisor provided stability. while Rachel, a part-time interior designer, kept their home warm and inviting. Friends often commented on how perfect they seemed. But behind closed doors, the cracks were forming. Daniel was ambitious, often working long hours, and Rachel was beginning to feel the strain of juggling motherhood, work, and a husband who seemed emotionally distant. Intimacy between them had waned, replaced by routine and polite affection. Still, Rachel trusted her husband. She believed his late nights at the office were just that, work. She believed her mother's frequent visits were simply the sign of a close-knit family. But Daniel was struggling with feelings he couldn't admit. Restlessness, a need to feel wanted again, and a dangerous curiosity about Evelyn. Evelyn Bennett was no stranger to loneliness. Recently divorced after a painful split from her husband of 25 years, she had been leaning heavily on Rachel for emotional support. But as her visits to the Martinez home grew more frequent, something began to shift. Evelyn admired Daniel. His charm, his attentiveness, the way he seemed to carry himself with quiet confidence. He represented the stability and passion she had lost years ago. And Daniel, noticing Evelyn's vulnerability, began to respond. Not overtly, not at first, but with small gestures, lingering conversations, inside jokes, the occasional shared glass of wine after Rachel had gone to bed. One evening, during one of Rachel's late-night design consultations, Daniel and Evelyn found themselves alone together. It started with a confession, Evelyn admitting how lost she felt since her divorce, and Daniel, perhaps seeking connection, telling her he often felt unseen in his own marriage. That night, a line was crossed. Not physically, but emotionally. And from there, it was only a matter of time. Within weeks, the relationship escalated. Secret meetings in discreet hotel rooms, text messages deleted almost as quickly as they were sent, excuses layered on excuses. Both Daniel and Evelyn told themselves it was temporary, that they would end it before anyone got hurt. But forbidden passion is a powerful drug, and neither of them could let go. Rachel, meanwhile, began to notice small inconsistencies. Daniel seemed distracted. Evelyn had started dressing differently, more vibrant, more daring. There were moments when Rachel would walk into a room and feel the air thicken, as though a conversation had been cut short. Still, she dismissed her suspicions. After all, who would imagine their husband and their mother together? But Rachel was beginning to sense that something was deeply wrong, and soon she would stumble upon the truth. And when she did, the confrontation would ignite a storm of jealousy and rage that no one could stop. It was a cool April evening when everything unraveled. The kind of night that the suburban calm seemed almost staged. Porch lights glowing, sprinklers hissing across manicured lawns, and a gentle breeze rattling the branches of blooming dogwood trees. But inside the Martinez home, a storm was about to break. Rachel had been on edge for weeks. Daniel had grown increasingly distant, and Evelyn's frequent visits, once a comfort, now felt intrusive. There had been whispers of perfume that didn't belong to her clinging to Daniel's clothes, unexplained receipts for hotel stays, and a gnawing intuition she could no longer ignore. That night, Rachel sat in the kitchen with her laptop open, scrolling through their shared credit card statements, a glass of red wine untouched beside her. Her pulse quickened when she noticed a series of small but frequent charges at a boutique hotel just 20 minutes away, on nights Daniel claimed to be working late. She clicked deeper, tracing the dates. Her stomach dropped when she realized several of them coincided with afternoons Evelyn had said she was running errands or meeting a friend. The dots connected in a single gut-wrenching flash. It couldn't be. It shouldn't be. But the truth was staring her in the face. Daniel came home later than usual, loosening his tie as he stepped through the door, exhausted but strangely detached. He barely looked at Rachel before muttering, "Long day. I'm going to shower." But Rachel's voice stopped him cold. "Who is she, Daniel?" He froze. His shoulders tensed, but he didn't turn around. What are you talking about? Rachel rose from her chair, holding up her phone with the hotel receipts glowing on the screen. These say everything. Just tell me the truth, please? For a long, heavy moment, Daniel said nothing. Then, without meeting her eyes, he whispered the words that would splinter her world forever. It's Evelyn. Rachel felt as though the air had been sucked out of the room. Her knees buckled, but rage kept her standing. My mother? My mother? She screamed, her voice shaking. You're telling me you've been sleeping with my mother? Daniel turned toward her, hands raised in a pleading gesture. Rachel, it wasn't supposed to happen. Stop, she snapped, tears streaming down her face. How long? 8 months, he admitted, barely above a whisper. The sound that escaped Rachel was not quite a sob, not quite a scream, something primal, raw. You destroyed us, she said, both of you. And for what? Some sick thrill? The argument escalated quickly, the words flying sharper, louder, more venomous with every exchange. Rachel accused. Daniel begged. At one point, she hurled a picture frame across the room, shattering it against the wall. But it was when Rachel grabbed her car keys and headed for the door that panic truly set in. Where are you going? Daniel demanded. To tell her exactly what I think of her, Rachel shot back. In a blur of motion, Daniel reached for her arm, not violently, but desperately. Rachel, don't, please. We can fix this. We can fix this? She wrenched her arm free, glaring at him with a mixture of hatred and heartbreak. You've ruined everything. You and her. There is no fixing this. And then it happened. In the chaos of the moment, Daniel tried again to stop her, grabbing at her wrist as she spun toward the door. Rachel stumbled backward, her heel catching on the edge of the rug. In one horrifying second, she lost her balance and crashed into the corner of the marble coffee table. The sound, a sickening crack, was followed by silence. Daniel stood frozen, staring at Rachel's motionless body sprawled across the floor, blood pooling beneath her head. Rachel? Oh God, Rachel! He choked, falling to his knees beside her. He pressed his hands to the wound, whispering frantically, "Stay with me, please, stay with me." But it was already too late. When the police arrived, Daniel claimed it was an accident. But as investigators would soon discover, his story had cracks, just like his marriage. And the secret that started it all was about to be exposed in the harshest light possible. The Martinez home became a crime scene within minutes of the first 911 call. When paramedics pronounced Rachel dead at the scene, Daniel was slumped against the wall, his blood-stained hands trembling, his eyes glassy with shock. He claimed repeatedly, "It was an accident. She fell. I tried to stop her from leaving, that's all." But seasoned detectives know that accidents often come with complications, hidden motives, inconsistencies in the story, or evidence that doesn't quite fit. Lead investigator Detective Carla Ramirez noted several details immediately. The coffee table, though bloodied, had no signs of prior impact damage, suggesting Rachel's fall was direct and forceful. The angle of the wound raised questions. Was it consistent with a backward fall, or did it suggest a deliberate strike? Additionally, Daniel's clothes were stained not just with blood, but also with faint smears that looked like they had been wiped, possibly from trying to clean himself before police arrived. Still, the scene could have supported Daniel's version, until detectives noticed Evelyn Bennett standing outside the home. The mother of the victim had rushed to the scene within 20 minutes of the incident, but the question lingered. How did she know to come so quickly? Detectives interviewed Evelyn at the station, initially as a grieving parent, but her responses raised red flags. When asked about her relationship with Daniel, she hesitated just a fraction too long before saying, "He's my son-in-law, that's all." Detective Ramirez exchanged a glance with her partner. People don't usually have to think about how to answer a simple question like that. Meanwhile, neighbors reported hearing a heated argument before the scream. A man's voice, a woman's voice, and what sounded like a crash. One neighbor mentioned seeing Evelyn's car parked 2 streets away earlier that evening, though Evelyn claimed she had been home. The timeline wasn't adding up. The real break came from Daniel's phone. Investigators found dozens of deleted text messages between him and Evelyn, messages that, once recovered through forensic software, revealed far more than casual contact. Flirty comments, late-night rendezvous, a string of messages from the night before the incident. Evelyn, she's starting to suspect. I can feel it. Daniel, I'll talk to her. We'll figure it out. Evelyn, we can't keep doing this, Daniel. It's wrong, but I can't stop thinking about you. Detectives now had a motive not just for betrayal, but for a potential confrontation turned deadly. Daniel was brought in for questioning. At first, he stuck to his story. Rachel tripped. It was an accident. But when detectives confronted him with the recovered messages, his composure cracked. Yes, I was seeing her mother, he admitted, voice breaking. But I swear to you, I didn't mean for this to happen. She found out last night. She confronted me. I tried to stop her from leaving to tell Evelyn. She pulled away and fell. I didn't push her. I didn't. Detective Ramirez leaned forward. Then why did Evelyn's car show up near your house an hour before Rachel died? Daniel's eyes widened. She was here? I didn't know. The possibility that Evelyn might have been closer to the scene than she claimed opened a darker question. Was she somehow involved in the fatal altercation, or had Daniel acted alone and tried to shift suspicion? When confronted with the texts and the sighting of her car, Evelyn broke down. She admitted to meeting Daniel earlier that evening at a nearby cafe where they had argued about ending their affair. She claimed she left and went home, but guilt gnawed at her until she drove back to check on him.
I didn't go inside, she insisted. I saw the flashing lights and I knew something had happened. But I swear, I wasn't there when it happened. Detectives weren't convinced. The forensic timeline placed Rachel's time of death close to when Evelyn's car was spotted nearby. But there was no physical evidence, no fingerprints out of place, no trace of Evelyn inside the home that night. Investigators faced a difficult decision. Was this a tragic accident caused by passion and betrayal? Or was it murder, a deliberate act sparked by rage, fear of exposure, or a toxic bond between two lovers who knew their secret couldn't survive the light of day? The answer would come during trial, where both Daniel and Evelyn would face the ultimate reckoning, and the courtroom would hear a theory that shocked even the most cynical observers. The trial of Daniel Martinez drew national attention, not just because of the brutal death of his wife, but because of the salacious revelation that he had been having an affair with his mother-in-law. Courtrooms are no strangers to drama, but this case had everything: betrayal, scandal, and a question that divided the public. Was Rachel's death a tragic accident or a crime of passion? Prosecutors painted Daniel as a man consumed by desire and fear, desire for his wife's mother, and fear of what would happen when Rachel discovered the truth. They argued that Rachel's death was no accident. It was a desperate attempt to silence her before she exposed the affair and destroyed his life. They presented the text messages as evidence of a relationship teetering on the edge of exposure. They called neighbors to testify about the heated argument, the crash, and the scream. And they emphasized Daniel's initial omission about the affair when first questioned by police, a sign, they claimed, of consciousness of guilt. Daniel's defense attorney countered with a different narrative, that this was a tragic, heat-of-the-moment accident. They brought in a forensic expert who testified that Rachel's head injury was consistent with a backward fall and could have been caused by losing balance during a struggle, not a deliberate blow. They also highlighted Daniel's frantic 911 call, played for the jury, where his voice cracked with genuine panic as he begged Rachel to wake up. Does that sound like a man who planned to kill his wife? The defense asked in closing arguments. Evelyn was called as a witness, an appearance that left the courtroom in stunned silence. Her voice trembled as she admitted to the affair, describing it as a horrible mistake that spiraled out of control. She testified that she had planned to end it the night before Rachel's death and that Daniel had begged her for more time. When the prosecutor pressed her, Did you believe Daniel might harm Rachel to protect your secret? Evelyn shook her head violently, tears streaming. No, he loved her. In his own way, he loved us both. But he never wanted this. After 3 days of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict: guilty of involuntary manslaughter, not murder. They believed Rachel's death was unintentional, but born of recklessness and a volatile confrontation. Daniel was sentenced to 18 years in prison, with the possibility of parole after 12. Evelyn faced no criminal charges, but became a pariah in her community. She moved to another state, living out her years under a shadow of guilt and infamy. Yet, even as the gavel fell, one question lingered. Was justice truly served, or was the full truth of what happened that night dyed with Rachel? Crimes of passion often leave behind more than physical evidence. They expose raw truths about human desire, fear, and the fragile boundaries of morality. The case of Daniel Martinez and Evelyn Bennett were no exception. Daniel was not a hardened criminal. By all accounts, he was a man who wanted to be seen, appreciated, and desired, a longing that had gone unfulfilled in a marriage that had slipped into routine. Psychological experts often describe such men as emotionally undernourished, vulnerable to temptation when confronted with an alternative source of validation. But Daniel's choice of partner, his wife's mother, suggests a deeper psychological rupture. For some, forbidden relationships provide an intoxicating mix of danger and desire. The secrecy intensifies the bond, turning guilt into adrenaline, passion into obsession. But as with most illicit affairs, fantasy collided with reality. When Rachel discovered the truth, the emotional scaffolding Daniel had built collapsed. In that moment of confrontation, he wasn't just afraid of losing his wife, he was terrified of losing the reckless dream he had built with Evelyn. Evelyn's motives were equally complex. Recently divorced, she was a woman grappling with aging, loneliness, and a fading sense of desirability. Psychologists point out that people in such states often seek affirmation, proof that they are still wanted, still alive in a world that seems to have moved on without them. But Evelyn's relationship with Daniel also blurred boundaries between maternal and romantic instincts. What began as emotional support, comforting her son-in-law during his marital struggles, crossed into territory neither dared to name aloud until it was too late. The forbidden nature of their affair likely intensified the connection, turning shame into fuel. In crimes of passion, the breaking point is rarely a single event. It is a slow build of tension, guilt, and fear until one spark sets everything ablaze. Rachel's confrontation was that spark. Daniel's panic wasn't only about losing her, it was about losing everything: his family, his reputation, and the dangerous connection to Evelyn. Psychological experts often describe such moments as emotional detonations, states where rational thought collapses under the weight of fear and adrenaline. Whether Daniel pushed Rachel or whether she fell in the struggle, the underlying truth is chilling. The affair had set a chain of events in motion that made violence all but inevitable. This case demonstrates how unaddressed emotional needs, unresolved trauma, and boundary erosion can transform love into destruction. Forbidden desire carries a heavy price, one that neither Daniel nor Evelyn anticipated when they first crossed that forbidden line. And Rachel, innocent in her trust, paid the ultimate price. In crimes of passion, the line between love and obsession is razor thin. One wrong step, one reckless choice, can turn longing into violence and leave behind scars no sentence can heal. What do you think? Was justice served, or was the full truth lost in the chaos of betrayal? If this story left you chilled, subscribe to Dark Passion for more true crime cases where love turns deadly and secrets destroy lives.